Good morning, aspirants. It's 12th of September today, and I welcome you all on today's edition of What to Read in the Hindu newspaper. While going through the articles, we will not only see its relevance with regard to prelims and mains, but we will also try interlink it with other GS papers as well. I am here to align your newspaper reading as a part of our GS syllabus. So let's get started. The very first article that is worth to read in today's Hindu newspaper talks about President urges restraint as crisis persists in Nepal. So now this particular article is relevant under the theme IR GS paper 2, wherein India-Nepal relationships, internal political instability in neighborhood, also relevant for GS paper 2 polity, wherein the role of army in politics, constitutional framework of Nepal, democracy in South Asia altogether, also relevant for GS paper 1, wherein society, in particular, youth movement and role of social media in nowadays for bringing up political change can be analyzed. From prelims perspective, the areas there that are need to be read and brushed up our knowledge is on geographical location of Nepal and the disputes that we have with regard to the boundary, also bordering Indian states of Nepal. From polity perspective, how is parliamentary system of Nepal different than India? Role of president and army. From current affairs perspective, the protest started on social media and how it led to the complete removal of a government altogether. In this manner, this particular article is to be seen holistically. From mains perspective, the same article can be seen through the lens of how nowadays youth movement and social media activism is reshaping the politics across the world. Also, India's neighborhood policy and challenges of political instability in Nepal, how this is to be seen in the long run. In this manner, this particular article is to be seen while going through today's paper. The next important article that is there in the paper and that needs our attention talks about researchers in Kerala tap red ivy plant to develop innovative wound healing pad. Now, this is relevant for GS paper 3, science and tech, wherein the role of nanotechnology and biotechnology with regard to medical innovation can be quoted. Also relevant for GS paper 3, environment, wherein the role of traditional medicine, bioresources in innovation can be quoted. From prelims perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of where this red ivy plant is located, whether this is endemic to a specific region or not, which species is it, what is the exact compound that is relevant for and that is important for the medicinal usage. For example, here in this particular plant, acetoside is a chemical compound that is very much relevant for it. From mains perspective, the same article can be seen through the lens of discuss the role of nanotechnology in advancing affordable healthcare in India altogether, or it could be innovation in biotechnology as well. In this manner, this particular article is to be seen thoroughly. Moving on, the next important article that is worth to read in today's paper is on editorials page, and that talks about Tamil refugee crisis. Now, this particular article is relevant for GS paper 2 primarily under the theme polity and governance, wherein Citizenship Act, refugee policies and center-state relations with regard to Tamil Nadu and center can be analyzed. Also relevant for GS paper 2 IR, wherein India-Sri Lanka relations with regard to Tamil refugees can be analyzed. The third subject that this particular article is relevant for under the theme social justice, wherein the right of refugees and humanitarian approach towards them can be linked. From prelims perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of Citizenship Act 1955, in particular Section 5 and Section 6, wherein registration and naturalization as a ground to obtain citizenship can be read and revised. What are long-term visas? Who all are exempted from it? The new Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019. This can also be revised while going through them. Also, from mains perspective, the areas that we have to brush up our knowledge is on analyzing India's refugee policies with reference to Tamil refugees. Also, do we have any sort of immigration laws that balances both our national security concerns, and at the same time humanitarian obligations that we have had. In this manner, this particular article is to be read and revised holistically. The next important article that is relevant to read in today's paper is about a project of strategic and national importance. Now, this is relevant in the context of environment altogether under the theme EIA and compensatory afforestation, biodiversity conservation, endemism. Also relevant for GS paper 1 geography, wherein the islands of Andaman and Nicobar can be seen and located on. We can even link this with the tribals that are inhabiting there, in particular PVTGs such as Shompen and Nicobaris. Another article and another subject that can be even linked while going through this particular article is GS2 quality, wherein Article 338A, NCST role, tribal policies. In this article, 2 tribal policies has been discussed. The very first one is 𝗗𝗏 policy and the next one is Shompen policy. So this particular part is to be seen. This is relevant for GS paper 3 as well, wherein security, in particular maritime security and Indian Ocean geopolitics, can be thoroughly read and revised. From prelims perspective, the areas that we have to keep in mind while going through this particular article would primarily talks about the location of Greater Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Do they have any volcanoes around it? Afterwards, institutions that has been mentioned, and I have underlined this clearly, wherein role of Zoological Society of India, Botanical Society of India, Wildlife Institute of India can be read and revised. Forest laws such as Forest Conservation Act of 1980, coastal regulation zones prior and the amendment that has been taken in 2018, all these things can be revised thoroughly. From mains perspective, the same article can be seen through the lens of Great Nicobar projects. It reflects India's dilemma of both development and environment, and we got to analyze it from both the perspective. What is the strategic importance and why it is relevant for this particular project to be implemented on Andaman and Nicobar Island? That is relevant from Indo-Pacific geopolitics altogether. So in this manner, this particular article is to be holistically seen while mapping through the syllabus of each of the component, and at the same time, how this is relevant for prelims and mains. Moving on, the very important article that is there in today's Hindu newspaper is about vulture conservation. So this article primarily talks about, can vultures help prevent pandemic? Now, when we map this particular topic in our syllabus, this will primarily fall under GS paper 3, environment, under the theme species decline, conservation strategies, Central Asian flyaway with regard to vultures. Also relevant for GS paper 3, health, wherein one health approach is to be integrated, zoonotic diseases, pandemic preparedness that we have had or not. Afterwards, GS paper 1 as well, wherein governance under the theme National Action Plan for Vulture Conservation, which was launched in 2016. How this has been effective so far. So in this manner, this particular article is to be seen. From prelims perspective, we need to know what is the cause of decline of vulture population in India. Then what are the migratory routes that vultures have? For instance, Central Asian flyaway that has been talked in this particular article. The diseases linked with them, this can also be analyzed. From mains perspective, the same article is to be analyzed through the lens of biodiversity loss and at the same time emerging pandemic. What could be the lessons for India? Then we have to analyze India's vulture conservation strategies at the time of public health security as well. In this manner, this particular article is to be read and revising the concepts that is needed for our prelims and mains as well. Moving on, the next important article that is there in the paper and that we need to go through is about United Naga Council suspends its trade embargo in Manipur. Now, this is relevant for GS paper 2 under the theme Polity and Governance, wherein border management, center-state disputes and issues can be analyzed. Also relevant for GS paper 2 under the theme IR, wherein India-Myanmar relationship as Manipur shares border with Myanmar can be analyzed. Free trade movement regime or free movement regime with regard to Manipur and Myanmar can be analyzed. Also relevant for GS paper 1 under the theme society, wherein the ethnic issues with regard to all northeast states can be read and revised as well. For prelims perspective, the areas where we need to brush up our knowledge is on border length that India, Myanmar totally shares. Then the policies with regard to free movement regimes that allows traveling up to 10 kilometers without documents, which is there with India and Myanmar. From mains perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of implication of scrapping this free movement regime for India in northeast region, and how does these ethnic clashes they influence governance issue in border regions altogether. In this manner, this particular article is to be seen thoroughly. Moving on, the next important article that is there in the newspaper and that needs our attention talks about India and Mauritius relationship. So India and Mauritius not just partners but a family, said Mr. Modi. So this is relevant for GS paper 2 IR, wherein neighborhood first policy, Indian Ocean security, diaspora linkages, all these angles can be explored while going through this particular article. Also relevant for GS paper 2 economy, wherein economic package infrastructure support that we provide to Mauritius can be read and revised. GS paper 1, wherein the civilizational ties under the theme society, Indian diaspora influence can be read and revised. From prelims perspective, the MOUs that we have signed with Mauritius in the form of establishing educational institutions or missions such as Karam Yogi that also being launched there. Then launching of 𝗗𝗗𝗄𝗏 𝗗𝗍 in abroad. So all these things can be explored, read and revised while going through this particular article. From mains perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of how Mauritius holds a strategic relevance in Indian Ocean region and altogether Indian Ocean policy for government as well. How can India use its soft power and cultural diplomacy in foreign relations wherein large diaspora is already there? In this manner, this particular article is to be holistically seen. And the last important article for the day that catches our attention in today's paper talks about working to blend isobutylol with diesel after ethanol blending failed. Now, this is relevant for GS paper 3 under the theme economy and economy, wherein biofuels, energy transitions, fulfilling sustainable development goals. What is the difference between ethanol and butanol? Also relevant for environment, wherein green energy, reducing fossil dependence can be explored. Relevant for S&T, science and tech, wherein automotive fuel innovation can be explored. Then for prelims perspective, what is the role of Automotive Research Association of India, ARAI? This is to be seen. Difference between the fuel such as isobutanol versus ethanol blending. What could be the difference between the two? From mains perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of evaluating India's biofuel policy in the context of reducing crude oil imports. That is the need of the hour. What is the role of advanced biofuels like isobutanol in India's energy security? In this manner, this particular article is to be seen through all the angles. This is all from my end for today's Hindu newspaper. Today, till we meet for the next time, take care and goodbye.